Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Joy Yamaguchi. I'm the Public Programs Coordinator here at the Japanese American National Museum, and I'm so excited and so grateful that you all are joining us tonight for the 7th Annual Short Story Contest celebration, our Imagine Little Tokyo Short Story Contest. And this program is in partnership with the Little Tokyo Historical Society, as well as Discover Nikkei, which is the project of the Japanese American National Museum. Just to get us started, a few logistical notes. I am going to be sharing in the chat a document that has the access information, as well as some more information about the programs and the different organizations that are hosting tonight. So you can take a look at that. But this program will run for about an hour and 45 minutes. It will be done in English, primarily with some Japanese. It will be mostly not subtitled, but there will be a few videos that will be subtitled, and the program is being recorded and will be released afterwards with closed captioning. Hope that folks feel comfortable getting up and moving around. You will be able to see and hear the panelists, but all participants' cameras and microphones are off, so we cannot see or hear you. You can comment and share in the chat, which you can find along the lower bar. There will be an icon that says chat, and you can click on that and share any feedback with the panelists or the stories. And then finally, unfortunately, we can't be gathered in person today like we usually would at the museum in Little Tokyo, but we're really excited to be moving digitally and putting on a lot of new initiatives, especially as part of our Janum from Home initiative, which involves lots of different programming as well as educational content and other videos and programming. So you can find all of that at janum.org, which is our website. And also please check out and support the Little Tokyo Historical Society, as well as all of the stories that you're going to hear tonight are going to be hosted on Discover Nikkei, which is a really amazing website with lots of resources. So with that, I want to thank you so much again for coming. I hope you continue to come to programs and continue to support the museum. We really appreciate it. And a special thank you and welcome to all of our members out there. Your membership is really what keeps us going and allowing us to put on programs like this. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to Mike from the Little Tokyo Historic Society. Hello, and I'm going to pass the baton off to you. Thank you so much.
All right. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Joy. Good evening. I'm Mike Okamura, president of the Little Tokyo Historical Society, and I welcome you to the Imagine Little Tokyo Short Story Contest, a virtual celebration. I thank you all for joining in tonight, and I hope you are well and in great health. This is LTHS's 7th Annual Short Story Contest, but our first ever to reach you by this Zoom gathering. And because of this web platform, we're able to have so many more of you attend compared to if the program was held in person at Janum's Tateuchi Democracy Forum in Little Tokyo, which was our original plan pre-COVID-19. We are all very grateful for your attendance, and we are hopeful you will enjoy the program. Now, I'd like to introduce our MC for the evening, Marilyn Tokuda. Marilyn served as the first arts education director of East West Players, the longest running professional theater of color in Los Angeles for 14 years. Under her purview, East West Players Arts Education Program received excellence awards from Asian Youth Center, the California Teachers Association, as well as several recognition awards from numerous city officials. Marilyn also directed scenes for 5 ABC television diversity showcases and is one of the founding members of Cold Tofu, the first Asian American comedy group where she served as its artistic director for 6 years. And now, Marilyn.
Hi, everyone. In 2013, the Little Tokyo Historical Society imagined having a contest to promote interest in Little Tokyo. So they sought writers to create stories about Little Tokyo. It could be about the past, the present, or the future. Stories that would show knowledge of and capture its spirit and cultural essence. The Imagine Little Tokyo contest was introduced, and the first year they had 60 submissions, which is quite a lot. Tonight, LTHS is celebrating their 7th annual Imagine Little Tokyo short story contest. Only this year with a new partner, Discover Nikkei, a project of Janum. Now there are 3 writing categories: adult, youth, and Japanese. Today we receive stories from across America, from many professions, including the military and even internationally. There's also a wide range of ages. Last year, the youngest writer was 11 years old, and guess what? He won. Imagine Little Tokyo. What better way to raise awareness and celebrate the specialness of Little Tokyo and acknowledge its history and legacy than through storytelling? The short stories this year made us laugh, made us cry, moved us to tears, stretched the imagination, and made us nostalgic for Little Tokyo in its former incarnations. Something magical happened this year. None of the judging panels, 3 judging panels, had no communication at all. For some reason, magically, they selected a winning story with a ghost, obake, or spirit of Little Tokyo theme. Spirits have always been part of the lore of Little Tokyo. Every Halloween, they have haunted Little Tokyo tours that quickly sell out. Almost everyone, or many people, have their own ghost story, including myself, and I'll tell mine. When I was working at East West Players, there's a back door, and it goes up 3 flights of stairs to the office. So I was going up, and I landed on the 3rd platform. If you take a left, you continue up the stairs. If you go straight, you go into the dressing rooms. And when I was just about to turn that corner, I heard a little voice in my right ear that simply said, "Hi, Marilyn." And I wasn't threatened, I wasn't scared, but it sounded like a little boy. And I looked around both ways, no one was there. I looked down the corridor to the dressing rooms, no one was there. So I figured, I guess those stories are true. And there were many other stories that people that worked at East West had. Someone heard a dog barking, someone smelled the musk of someone's body odor, very strange things. But anyway, that was my story. Now, every year we have an awards ceremony to present the winners and their stories. This year we are privileged to have some really great actors read the winning stories. Derek Mio will read the winning story of the adult category, She's Not There, where a sighting of a mysterious girl in a pink kimono leads to a trip to the heart and spirit of Little Tokyo. Derek Mio was lead actor in AMC's critically acclaimed series, The Terror, Infamy, executive produced by Ridley Scott. He will be portraying a real-life Korean war hero, Hiroshi Hershey Miramura, in the Netflix anthology series, Medal of Honor. And if that's not enough, on top of all his acting skills and credits, Derek is a stand-up comedian. That's great. I'm so envious. After the reading of She's Not There, Brian Niiya, content director and editor of Densho Encyclopedia, will represent the adult judges panel to say a few words about the winning selection. Brian will then introduce James Fujita, the winning author.
My name is Eric Ramirez, and I'm proud to say that I'm helping Los Angeles build a subway system. You may have seen me before. You know that big construction site in the middle of Little Tokyo across from the Japanese American Museum? There are a couple of spots along the sidewalk where you can look through the fence and see what will eventually be an underground light rail station. Yeah, I'm one of those construction guys you might see over there. Sorry about the mess. About a month ago, I was down in a corner of the big pit, double-checking some concrete. I was by myself, away from the rest of my usual crew. Well, all of a sudden, I had this funny, paranoid feeling, like somebody was sneaking up on me. I even thought I saw someone out of the corner of my eye. It wasn't one of the other guys, or a foreman, or a supervisor. It was a child, a young, long-haired, Asian-looking girl wearing some sort of light pink kimono. She was smiling. My mind flooded with questions. Who was she? How did she get there? Was she trespassing? Why wasn't she wearing a hard hat? So I turned around to talk to her, but there was nobody there. Whoever it was had vanished into thin air. It was strange. On my way out, I asked a couple of the other guys if they had seen anybody lurking around, a missing child perhaps. What are you talking about, man? There hasn't been anybody here but us, Foreman Mike says with a laugh. The others I talked to all agree. No kids had accidentally wandered into the area. None of us had invited a daughter to come see what Daddy does all day. Go home and get some rest, Mike suggests. It was probably just my imagination, I think to myself. I don't believe in ghosts. I head home and don't think about it for the rest of the evening. That night, I had a dream. I was in Little Tokyo. At least, I think it was Little Tokyo. It looked different. The big glass museum building was gone. That Japanese hotel on First Street was gone. There were trolley tracks down the middle of the street, but no subway tunnel construction. Stores, shops, and restaurants were all closed. And the people looked different, too. It was like one of those old Hollywood movies where the men all wore suits with fedoras, you know what I mean? Men, women, and children, all Japanese American, I suppose, had gathered around. Some of the men were carrying suitcases, while others had big bundles or packages. Then I noticed the buses. That's when I started to understand. The people weren't just standing around. They were waiting to be hauled off. I couldn't see their faces very clearly. Were they worried, concerned, confused, angry, or just resigned to their fate? The crowd seemed surprisingly orderly. At last, the buses were all loaded up and I was the only person left. Except there was still one girl left behind. It was that same little girl in the kimono that I had imagined seeing earlier. She watches the buses leave and then she shakes her head in silent disbelief. I saw her fade away as she walked off down the empty street. And then I woke up. The next morning, I had the day off, so I decided to head downtown. I wanted to see the Japanese American Museum. I already knew a little bit about the history of the area that we were digging up. Metro had put historic photos on the fence around the subway project. I knew how we had locked up all of those Japanese Americans during World War II. But my strange kimono girl confused me. Had anybody managed to stay behind when they took them all the way to the desert? When I arrived at the museum, I found a museum guide and asked him if anybody had been forgotten in all of the confusion. No, that couldn't be, said the guide, a gray-haired Asian American gentleman in a purple vest. He sounded surprised that I would even suggest it. People who moved to the East Coast were able to avoid the camps, but they wouldn't have left anybody behind here. I can't imagine it. I thanked the man and looked around the historic exhibits. Little Tokyo sure looked different back then. My dream seemed pretty accurate so far. I was getting hungry, so I left the museum in search of a bite to eat. I avoided the famous ramen noodle house with the huge crowd out front. Instead, I wandered into Japanese Village Plaza and found a small cafe near the Hello Kitty store. It appeared to be a two-person operation, with a man behind the counter cooking. A woman, possibly his wife, was doing all of the waitressing. It was after 1 p.m., and I seemed to be their only customer at the moment. So, what brings you to Little Tokyo? She asked when I was done with my teriyaki bowl and about ready to leave. Would you believe I'm on a ghost hunt? A ghost hunt? Yeah, I know it sounds dumb, right? I answered. Oh, no, it's not so dumb, she replied. Mom has seen a ghost. Would you like to hear about it? Before I had a chance to protest, she called out to a little old Japanese lady who was apparently her mother. I hadn't noticed her earlier. She must have been sitting in the back of the cafe. She was not much taller when she stood up. As soon as I realized what was going on, I got up from my table and headed over to where the old lady was. I towered over her. She sat back down and I found a chair. Mom, whose name was Chiyo, had a short conversation with the waitress, June. Chiyo didn't hear well, but eventually she got the idea that I wanted to hear about ghosts. In the meantime, I noticed that a couple of new customers had arrived. June's husband got out from behind the small kitchen area and took their orders. I felt sorry for the guy. Chiyo spoke slowly, and June nudged her along. But between the two of them, I got a rambling story that was more about the history of Little Tokyo than about ghosts. As it turns out, Chiyo was actually June's mother-in-law. Chiyo had been in a Japanese-American concentration camp as a child, but June was born after the war. Post-war Little Tokyo took time to rebuild. Parker Center ate a large chunk of the community in the 1950s. A lot of Japanese Americans moved to Torrance or Gardena, but Chiyo's family lived in Boyle Heights, closer to downtown. Chiyo's older brother ran a small cafe that would evolve into the one that I was sitting in. Redevelopment in the 1970s led to evictions and protests, but the community fought to keep local mom-and-pop businesses open and to get senior housing built. In the middle of all this turmoil, Chiyo's family lucked out. The people who built Japanese Village Plaza wanted Japanese American-owned businesses, and the family's cafe was a perfect choice. As one of the first tenants, the family was invited to a ceremonial grand opening event at the entrance to the Japanese-themed shopping center. It was boring, Chiyo explained. A lot of fancy people gave speech. I needed to stretch my legs, take a walk, look around. If anybody noticed that one of the guests had wandered off into the brand new shopping center, nobody seemed to care. Chiyo didn't walk very far before she decided to head back to the entrance. But before she could return to the ceremony, she thought she sensed somebody behind her. She turned around to look. That's when Chiyo saw her. It was a young, long-haired girl wearing a light pink kimono. The girl smiled, but said nothing. I thought she must be part of the ceremony, Chiyo said, but something didn't feel right. Chiyo looked away from the girl for a brief moment. Of course, when she looked back, the girl had vanished. She showed me the spot once, June added. There's nowhere for a girl to run off to or to hide. She definitely had to have vanished. Chiyo finishes up her story, and I thank them for their time. After lunch, I walked around the shopping center for a little bit. I need a bit of time to digest my lunch and digest what Chiyo had told me. If she's correct, I've seen a ghost. But, like I said, I don't believe in ghosts. The shopping center is nice. They seem to have a little bit of everything, from toys to traditional clothes to a bakery. When I reach a fork in the path, I glimpse a familiar-looking kimono girl walking away to the right. It can't be her, I think. My eyes are playing tricks on me. Still, I head to the right and find myself walking down an indoor mall. It seems that all the shops down here are dedicated to Japanese animation, video games, and other random bits of Japanese pop culture. A giant robot stands in one window, and I think I see Godzilla in another storefront. There are school uniforms, ninja outfits, and Pokemon cards for sale. I see posters and cardboard cutouts of anime characters. A couple of pink-haired teens walk by wearing costumes. Is there a convention event going on downtown? Or are these just store clerks? I slowly realize that I must have followed a fully alive human being into the anime mall, not a ghost. None of the people I see look like how I remember the young kimono girl looked. Although, I have to admit that a kimono ghost would not attract much attention down here. I headed back to the museum. I wanted to learn more. Were there ghosts haunting the Little Tokyo neighborhood? Well, we did have some special events for Halloween last year. The young woman at the front desk information tells me they had ghost tours of the neighborhood. You know, they went down spooky alleyways where ghosts have been seen. She shows me an old poster for the Halloween events. I ask if she remembers any specific ghosts. I'm sorry, I wasn't on any of the tours, she explains. Perhaps you'd like to speak with George. He's our resident ghost expert. I meet George in the museum's library on the first floor. George is taller than the museum guide I spoke with earlier. He leads me to a conference room where we talk. I describe the girl to him, and he immediately recognizes her. So, you've met Kimono Girl, have you? George asks. Yukata would be more logical, it seems to me. But witnesses tell us kimono, so the name stuck. George shows me a notebook that he carried from the library. The notebook contains a list of sightings of the girl. It is a long list with details for each appearance. He tells me that the girl first appeared in the 1890s, when a handful of Japanese shops and restaurants grew into a real community. People claim to have seen her during the first Nisei week back in 1934, but it's hard to know for sure, he says. George gives me a brief explanation of the Nisei week, summer festival, and it does sound like something a Japanese-American girl ghost would like. There would have been a lot of people in Yukata, wouldn't there? He says. She would blend right in, wouldn't she? He says that people had also seen the girl at Little Tokyo's various Obon festivals. He hesitates to add that Obon is a traditional festival honoring the dead. I don't mean it quite like that, he quickly adds. I don't think she's your typical ghost haunting. I mean, look at all these other sightings. According to George's notebook, Kimono Girl was spotted at the Old Japanese Union Church in 1949, at Little Tokyo Towers in 1975, at the Cultural Center in 1980, outside the museum in 1992, and at the Go for Broke Monument in 1999. Others claim to have seen a mysterious girl strolling through the Cultural Center's Japanese garden. Our girl has also been spotted mourning in front of the Onizuka Astronaut Memorial at Weller Court. And finally, a mysterious girl was seen after the groundbreaking ceremony for the Budokan, George says. What's that? I guess you haven't heard, George explains. It's going to be a gym. Apparently, she was holding a basketball. He flips through some pages in the notebook. A friend of mine told me he saw Kimono Girl dancing on the rubble of the old Parker Center last year, George says, but I think he was just pulling my leg. So what does all this mean? I ask. Perhaps she represents the spirit of Little Tokyo, he says. I wait for him to make a joke or something. I'm serious, he adds. Look at the dates in my notebook. A lot of them coincide with some major event. A new building, the founding of a new business or new organization. During the war, she couldn't leave Little Tokyo because she is Little Tokyo. But why is she always a little girl? Perhaps because Little Tokyo has been rebuilt and reborn so many times. She's never grown up. I guess that makes sense, I think. I have one final question. The one thing that got me involved in all of this in the first place. So what about my Kimono Girl sighting? I mean, the one in the pit. You say you think she was smiling? Yeah. Then maybe she approves of the construction, George says. A lot of people who come to the museum say they took the train here. And this new subway, it will just bring more people, won't it? We chat a little bit longer about the subway, the Dodgers, and other stuff. By now, it is just about closing time for the museum, so I thank him and head out. I am left with a lot to think about. If George's story is true, then Little Tokyo has a spirit, and she is still here after all this time. The camps didn't kill her. Redevelopment couldn't finish her off. And perhaps I'm making my contribution to Little Tokyo's survival. It is a comforting thought. I don't believe people come back as ghosts, but a community spirit I can deal with. That's my story, and I swear it is all true.
So that was She's Still Here, the winning story in the adult English category. My name is Brian Niiya, and I was one of the judges for this category, along with Carol Itatani and Amy Uematsu. Just a quick note on our process. We're given 14 stories to consider with the author's names not included. An earlier group having screened the entries, passing those on to us, and the three of us independently read and ranked the stories. We shared the top choices with each other, and there was pretty broad agreement on which stories to discuss further, and really a consensus formed pretty quickly for She's Still Here, which was the only story to make all of the judges' top 3 lists as the winner. We like the story's timeliness, its historical scope, and its political edge. We felt that She's Still Here was able to convey the many transformations Little Tokyo has seen, and the idea of its enduring spirit. And I think it's kind of cool that all 3 stories had this ghost story element to it, which was kind of fitting. So on behalf of Carol and Amy, we'd like to congratulate the winning author, James Fujita, and turn it over to him for a few comments.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd just like to thank the Historical Society for this wonderful award. It's an honor to win this, and Little Tokyo has always been important to me, so I am glad to be able to make my contribution to the community. I know it's a cliche, but I would also like to thank my parents. My mother, an English teacher and a librarian, taught me about proper good grammar and all that, and my father showed me the importance of learning about Japanese culture, so I would also like to thank the editors I've had, starting with Naomi when she was editor of the Roth Shimpo. So I think you can see the influence of all of them in my story. And I'd also just like to say I thought Derek gave a great reading. So again, once again, thank you. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
That was great, James. Congratulations. Oh, I miss Little Tokyo. The lucky and talented winner in each category receives $500. Whoa, no joke. Which would normally be presented at a live public award ceremony along with the dramatic reading, but unfortunately this year, for obvious reasons, we're not able to have it, but hopefully next year we will. But it's great that we're having this, celebrating today anyway, right? The winning story in the youth category will be read by Tamlyn Tomita. Finding Shinyū is a tender story of a young woman who, with the help of a mischievous spirit, discovers the soul of Little Tokyo. Tamlyn Tomita made her screen debut in Karate Kid Part 2 and has appeared in numerous feature film, television, and theater projects. She's known for her roles in Joy Luck Club, Picture Bride, and Come See the Paradise. On TV, she was most recently seen as Commodore O on Star Trek Picard, was Allegra Aoki in The Good Doctor, and Tamiko Watanabe in The Man in the High Castle. Tamlyn is also known, I think we all know her, and she has always been such a generous soul giving back to the JA community, always. After the reading, Finding Shinyū, Kelsey Iino, counseling professor at El Camino College, and an education and community activist representing the youth judges panel, will talk about their winning selection. She will then introduce the 17-year-old winning writer, Onassa Sun.
Finding Shinyū. I am inside Marakai Market when the muffled sound of the taikos indicate the Oshogatsu festival has begun. Several strong, clear beats slip through the door with every entrance and exit. As people settle down to observe the New Year celebrations, I pay for my mensuyu and leave. On stage, the Nisei Week Queen and Court are preparing to throw mochi into the crowd for mochimaki. Hisa always urged me to try and catch one with her, but proud as I was, I refused, claiming I was too old for such things. And now Hisa will be 15 forever, and with every year, time will separate us even more than it already has. Determined not to repeat my past mistakes, I join the little children in raising their hands in the air, eagerly trying to attract a mochi-wielding princess. My eyes lock with one of them, and an amused expression on her face, she throws one at me. Reaching out for the pink and white package, I can practically feel the plastic when someone snatches it and wisely races off. I gape, stunned. That mochi. I was going to take it to Hisa's grave. Squeezing past the crowd packed tighter than canned samakabayaki, I chase the bandit out, through the light tunnel, right and straight into the DoubleTree Hotel. The receptionists stare as I dash across the lobby and into an elevator right as it's about to close. I pause. No one's inside. Turning to the control panel, I see it's set to floor G, Japanese Kyoto Gardens, it reads underneath. The elevator door opens and I follow the pitter-patter of footsteps, left and outer door. What strikes me first is the quiet. It is colored with the sweet melody of wind and water and sun. Bird songs emerge from the viridescent trees, all on top of a building in the middle of Los Angeles. Hisa would love this, I whisper. I'm sure she would, a voice replies. Startled, I turn to see a little Japanese girl in a red kimono. Hidden undeniably in her sleeve is a small rectangular package. She's the mochi thief? Who are you? I ask, and she laughs gleefully into her sleeve. My name is Shinyū, and I'm a Tsukomogami. I blink, hoping she will explain her deceptively simple statement. Instead, she smiles as if to suggest I am the stupid one. It works, and I say, I'm sorry, I'm not Japanese, so I have no idea what that is. Shinyū sighs, this might be harder than I thought. But I'm sure we'll find it in the end. Find what? Find my body? She replies matter-of-factly. Nothing strange at all about it. I am the spirit of Little Tokyo, and if it's not too much trouble, please help me find myself. I stare at this self-proclaimed Japanese ghost and wonder where exactly I went wrong. Wait a minute. First you're telling me you're the spirit of Little Tokyo, and now you, who is standing right in front of me, are asking me to help you find you? Shinyū beams. That was perfectly said. So you really can help me? But you can't be a spirit. And how am I supposed to find you if you're already here? Look, I can even touch... I reach out to take her hand and prove her tangibility, but she withdraws with a grim expression. Please, don't touch me. A soul is a fragile thing, especially when there is no shell to protect it. But I really am a Tsukomogami. That is, I'm an inanimate object which acquired a kami on my 100th birthday. And since I'm the spirit born from Little Tokyo, my body is larger than most. Now I need to find my heart, Little Tokyo's keystone, so to speak, before the oldest parts of this district start to crumble. A body without a life is just a corpse after all. As I am now, I am simply a spirit. An idea, really. Silently, I mull over her words, rolling them back and forth in my mind like glass marbles. I can't prove Little Tokyo will collapse if you don't help me. she says resignedly. But I need you to take a chance on me. For your home's sake. I look up. But why me? I'm Chinese. I only live in Little Tokyo. How am I supposed to find the root of a culture that's not even mine? Smiling, Shinyū says, it doesn't take a native to appreciate a culture. All it really takes is a receptive heart and eyes that are willing to see. Finally, I agree to help her for Hisa's sake. Hisa, who loved Little Tokyo more than anything. Shinyū calls, let's go, Mooli. There's a secret door that leads directly to Weller Court. I chase after her receding figure, only processing what she said as I hold the door open for her. Mooli. Shinyū, how do you know my name? She grins and shrugs in her frustratingly adorable way. I pronounced it right, didn't I? I had to practice it a lot before I got it right. Mooli. It's a beautiful name. Mooli means jasmine flower in Chinese, right? I nod. Hearing someone call me by my real name, I almost forgot what it felt like. Most people just call me Molly. It's a small thing, saying someone's name right, but it can truly move a person. Are you okay? Shinyū asks, clearly unsettled by my silence. I look down and gift my first smile of 2020 to her. Yes, I'm just really happy you made the effort to say my name right. Thank you. Of course. Even though we only have a month to find my heart and everything, I hope we could be good friends. I'm sure we can. The first place we come up with is Koyasan Buddhist Temple. It was founded in 1912, Shinyū tells me, which I find difficult to believe of this pristinely kept building. She notices my disbelief and laughs. Of course, this building is not the original, but that's not important. What's important is how many generations found refuge and peace in this establishment. This temple is an old soul. We throw our coins into the box together so the monk won't be startled by a floating quarter and raise our hands in prayer. I peek out at Shinyū from the corner of my eye. Her expression is so sincere. I decide to say a prayer after all. I say a prayer for my family, for Hisa, for Shinyū. And in that utterly selfless action, I understand why people come to this temple. They come to feel connected with the people around them. Because what is a person but a thread interwoven with others to create a grand tapestry? By itself, the thread is insignificant, but when wound with others, it creates something larger than itself. Shinyū and I exit the temple, neither of us saying a word. I prayed for you, she says, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. Somehow I'm not surprised that is why she looked so earnest. I prayed for you too. Too bad the temple isn't where my heart is. I laugh. It wouldn't be fun if it was that easy. Let's go to Daikokuya, Myoli. Daikokuya? The ramen shop? It's not that old, is it? Shinyū shakes her head solemnly, sighing dramatically at my ignorance. It's quite comical, really, for someone of her childish nature. Molly, food is a critical aspect of any culture. Do you know how long ramen has been serving as fuel for the Japanese workforce? I'm convinced. Then suddenly, her serious expression cracks like an egg into an overwhelming smile. But most importantly, I'm hungry. Blinking twice, I burst out laughing right alongside her. You should have said so in the first place. Our mid-afternoon ramen is an amusing affair. The moments the waiters look away, I frantically feed Shinyū noodles and large slabs of pork chashu, all while resisting the urge to laugh. As we polish off the rich tonkotsu broth, an elderly man walks in and sits at the bar seat closest to the wall. His face is a canvas of old sorrows, lost opportunities, numbed pains. Then to my alarm, Shinyū gets up and sits in the stool next to his. Amazed, I watch as she begins making one-sided conversation. Oji-san, isn't little Tokyo beautiful today? I went to the temple with my friend and the incense smells so good. I'm glad you chose to come out. Everyone looks so happy and... I may be the only one who can see Shinyū, but nothing can change the fact that the smile on the old man's face as he left was a gift from the spirit of little Tokyo. Museum's Free-for-All Day finds us at the Japanese American National Museum. Hurry up, Molly, Shinyū exclaims, bouncing impatiently at the top of the stairs. She races off ahead of me and, by the time I catch up, her demeanor has changed altogether. Now silent, we walk through a reconstruction of the Heart Mountain Barracks, past articles denouncing Japs, into an exhibit about the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. We reach the end and Shinyū stops before a statue of two golden cranes, their wings pressed together, and a length of barbed wire in their beaks. From her eyes, I can tell she is somewhere far away from me, perhaps in another time. She says sadly, I wonder how the first Issei felt, traveling so far away from home, to a different land, with a different culture and a different language. Tell me, Muoli, what is it like to be totally alone? No friends, no family, no familiar faces, only memories of a beautiful place and pretty photographs in your mind? And I know I cannot answer her question. So instead, I gestured toward the cranes. But were they really alone? Shinyū turns and I try to draw her just a little bit closer. Little Tokyo wasn't built in a day, not to mention by a single person. It was built building by building, person by person, around a shared love for the country they left behind. It is only because the Issei united that little Tokyo exists today. And even when there were hardships, I say, tracing the barbed wire with my hand, they never let their community fall apart. We hold up our palms, a breath away from touching, to imitate the wings of the cranes. Finally, Shinyū looks up and says, how terrible it must have been to be merely oneself. No history, nowhere to search for an identity. It's like having skin with no flesh. I smile. Yes, but how lucky we are to have such rich cultures within us. The last day of January slips in like a child too late for class, and for the first time Shinyū starts to worry. Today's our last chance to find my heart. But, Muoli, what if we can't find it? Don't worry, I say comfortingly. I know we'll find it. How about we get some imagawayaki? I'm sure something sweet will make you feel better. Shinyū nods, smiling at me gratefully, and we make our way to Mitsuru Cafe. At the red yagura, which towers over Japanese Village Plaza, a voice calls, Hey! Muoli! Shinyū! Up here! I look up, more out of shock than anything, and tears rise and spill from my eyes before I can control them. Hisa! Hisa, you're back! I thought I would never see you again. I've missed you so much, Hisa. Please come down. Grinning, Hisa leaps from her perch at the top of the watchtower and floats down gracefully, alighting next to me. How have you been, Nii-chan? I laugh desperately, trying to wipe away my tears. Your real sister would be jealous She heard you say that. Hisa smiles and turns to greet Shinyū. It's been a while. Still haven't found your heart yet? Nope, Shinyū sighs. It's been really fun hanging out with Muoli, though. My brain fails to connect the dots and I stare blankly at them. You two know each other? They look at each other and smile conspiratorially. Well, we are both spirits. When Shinyū asked me for help, I told her to find you. Hisa pauses, gazing at me tenderly. You were never quite the same after I died, Muoli. Your heart never lets go once it has loved, which is why I thought helping Shinyū would distract you from your grief. As it turns out, I was right. She beams. And I have good news. I know where Shinyū's heart is. After observing little Tokyo from the Agora, I realized something important. And that is, culture is not in the food, or the language, or the customs. It's in the people. It is woven so tightly into a person's cloth that to strip it away would be to unravel their very being. So long as people care, their culture will never die. This community, it is nothing less than a family. So Shinyū, spirit of my home, your place is in the hearts of the people. A strong wind rises around us and sweeps through the streets of Little Tokyo. All around me, people accompany the historic district as it takes a deep breath, inhaling the future and reviving the past. When I turn back, Hisa is gone. She has no more regrets, Shinyū says, and I smile up at the sky. I'm glad. Thank you, Hisa, for everything. Suddenly, Shinyū runs up to me and wraps her arms around me in a big hug. I panic. Wait, Shinyū, what are you doing? You said you'd disappear if I touched you. She steps back, and horror envelops me as her body starts to fade into the wind. I'm sorry, Muoli, but it's time for me to go now. Back to my heart. She smiles weakly, and I recognize the way she tries to veil her sadness. Thank you for everything. This month was so much fun. Here, this belongs to you. Shinyū reaches into her sleeve and pulls out the package of mochi she first stole from me a month ago. Tears blurring my eyes, I open it, giving her the pink mochi and keeping the white one for myself. They are no longer hard. I should be the one thanking you. You've taught me so much about how to live, how to laugh, how to love. I will never forget you, Shinyū. I promise. And we embrace one last time before she disappears and becomes one with the wind. And I know I will keep my word. Because in everything, the beating of the taiko, the laughter of the people, the steam that rises from fresh ramen, I will find the spirit of Little Tokyo.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by saying congratulations to Onassa for your incredible story, Finding Shinyū. By far, it was the best story out of all of the stories that we read for the Imagine Little Tokyo Short Story Contest Youth section. I hope that you continue to write and use your imagination as you move forward. I look forward to reading more things from you. The story was amazing. It took place on New Year's Day in Little Tokyo. And so since that was such a celebratory situation and we're now in summer, I wanted to wear my yukata to honor you. I think going through all of the steps and elements of everything, you really painted an extremely vivid portrayal of Little Tokyo, the food, the culture, the history, the love that the main character had for Little Tokyo, and it was extremely vibrant and vivid, and I really, really, really appreciated everything that you had to say. There was a section that you wrote, "So long as the people care, their culture will never die," and I just really took that to heart. Having lived in Little Tokyo for many years myself and volunteered a lot, Little Tokyo does mean a lot to me, and apparently a lot to you as well. So it was really great to read, and hopefully your story will get shared with others so they can too love and see how great everything is in Little Tokyo. Congratulations on tonight and for the award, and like I said, keep writing. Thank you for loving Little Tokyo as much as a lot of people in this room probably do, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, and I hope everyone enjoyed Finding Shinyū. Even though I officially began drafting this January, the story's creation actually began 3 years ago when my friend Tiffany brought me to Little Tokyo for the first time. I remember being amazed at the wealth of Japanese culture that I found there, the events, the buildings, the food, but most of all, the people that I met along the way. I have a fond memory of attending the 2020 Oshogatsu Festival with my mother, where I actually did have my mochi snatched away by a boy, who shortly afterwards returned it to me and then said I was pretty. As you can see, much of the story is actually based on real life. Molly, the main character, is named after my favorite teacher, Mrs. Rolfe, who always listens to my story ideas. And my mother even drove me to Little Tokyo 3 times to make sure my story would be perfect. I sincerely believe that everything, people, places, and even stories are loved into being. Beautiful things come from love. I have a fun fact, actually, that I wasn't able to include in the original story. Shinyū's name is written with 2 characters. The first is Shin from Shinzo, meaning heart, and the second is Yu from Yure, meaning spirit. And so, Shinyū means heart spirit. But the word Shinyū also has its own meaning, best friend. While writing this story, I truly felt in touch with this wonderful community, and I'm so grateful to all of you for being a part of this beauty that transcends all borders. Thank you very much.
Wow. Onassa, are you sure you're only 17? I mean, that is, when I was 17, I certainly could not write like that. I mean, my idea of writing was passing notes saying, I wonder what we're having for lunch. But I have no doubt that you have a very bright future ahead. That was just beautifully written and beautifully read by Tamlyn. Congratulations. Imagine Little Tokyo winners and finalists have gone on to publish or adapt their entries into play form and a children's picture book. Eijiro Ozaki will read Senjo no Mangaka, or The Last Hero, the Japanese language winning story. It's a moving story of a Nisei parents able to spend a precious day with their son, who was in the 442 and lost his life during World War II. Eijiro Ozaki is a Japan-born actor who made his US film debut in Letters from Iwo Jima, directed by Clint Eastwood. Other film TV credits include The Man in the High Castle, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and ABC's Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He most recently played a Yakuza boss in Yakuza Princess, an upcoming film adaptation of a popular Brazilian graphic novel. After the reading of Senjo no Mangaka, representing the Japanese languages judges panel, Makiko Nakasone, founding member of the Little Tokyo Rotary Club, will talk about their winning selection. She will then introduce the winning writer, Junzo Arai.
Senjo no Mangaka 1969年8月中旬、イーストロサンゼルスのボイルハイツ。日系一世徳次吉田は自宅の食卓でタバコをふかしながら今日のラフ新報に目を通していた。第28回二世ウィーク日本祭りグランドパレードは明日 と出ている。徳次は短くなったタバコを灰皿に押し当てると、リビングにいる妻に向かって言った。おい、そろそろ行くぞ。二人は60代後半の老夫婦。久枝は盆棚にお茶を添えた。ちょっと待って。他に、キュウリの馬とナスの牛、中央には位牌と若者の写真が立てられている。久枝はつぶやいた。もう25年も経つのね。戦死した一人息子だ。決してハンサムとは言えないが、丸顔で親しみやすい笑顔が特徴の子だった。ケント吉田一等兵、18歳は、元442部隊所属で、1944年10月末日、北フランスヴォージュ山地で戦死した。陸軍省からその電報を受け取ったのは、マンザナーのキャンプ内だった。夢は漫画家。子供の頃からスーパーマン、キャプテンアメリカなどあらゆる漫画を読み漁り、自分自身で描いた作品は一度だけ小さな出版社の公募で入賞したこともあった。鉄条網に閉ざされた薄暗いキャンプから旅立っていったケントは、ついに生きたまま戻ることなく、二人にとてつもない悲しみをもたらした。窓の外の庭には、ブーゲンビリアの花が夏の日差しをいっぱいに浴びている。二人で表へ出ると、つむじ風が吹いた。リビングにいる飼い猫タロが背中の毛を逆立てて、突然、盆棚の位牌がパタンと倒れた。久江は不意にケントの気配を感じたような気がしたが、その時はあまり気にしなかった。二人はその後、日本人町のグロッサリーストアで買い物を済ませ、高野山の開教師と出会った。久江は先ほどから考え事をしており、思い切って尋ねてみた。さっき死んだ息子をそこで見た気がしたんですが。徳次は呆れ顔だったが、開教師は何かを悟ったかのように、この日本人町は多くの日系人にとっての心の故郷です。今は息子さんとの思い出に感謝してみてください。南無大師返上金剛。と言って、静かに一礼すると言ってしまった。442部隊は、アメリカ史上最も勲章が多かった勇猛果敢な部隊として知られている。しかしそれは、最も死傷者の多かった部隊という皮肉でもあった。そしてケント吉田については、例外で、勲章はなし。それどころか、命令不服従及び敵前逃亡の疑いありと調書に記されていた。誰よりも臆病な彼についたあだ名は、フライドチキン。日焼けした臆病者。徳次と久江が自宅へ戻ると、玄関先に誰かが立っている。軍服を着たその男を不審に思いながら、徳次は恐る恐る背後から近づいた。こんにちは。どなた様？すると、男は振り向いていった。ダード、久しぶり。久江は驚きのあまり、買い物袋を地面に落とした。青年はにんまりと笑うと、徳次はその場に固まってしまった。ケントだった。25年前のあの日、キャンプから出て行ったそのままの息子がそこにいる。お前、生きてたのか？そう言うと、残念ながら生きてはないけど、なんだか戻ってこれたみたい。 さらに徳次はケントの足元を見た。足はちゃんとついてるよ。ぴょんぴょんと跳ねながら、ケントは当時流行った得意のダンスステップを見せた。やっぱりあなただったのね。久江は感激してケントに抱きついた。夕刻の穏やかな太陽光がリビングに差し込み、飼い猫太郎は静かにソファーの上で寝ている。バスルームからシャワーを浴び終わったケントが出てくると、久江はきれいに折りたたんだ部屋着を差し出した。これ、パパのだけれど、サイズはほとんど一緒よね。ケントは軍服の代わりに着替えると、だいぶお腹出っ張っちゃったね。と言いながら、だらーんとしたウエストの裾をつまんでいる。食卓には、天ぷら、お刺身、いなり寿司などが並んだ。わーお！ケントは目を輝かせた。大好物の照り焼きチキンもある。それからいただきますも言わずに、チキンを口に運んだ。いっぱいあるから、落ち着いて食べなさい。そう言うと、久江は大盛りのご飯をよそって手渡した。これうまい。本当にうまいよ。久々のお袋の味に夢中のようだ。その夜、ケントはヨーロッパ戦線での経験を話した。青白い光の筋が嵐のように降り注いで、そこら中に敵や味方の死体が散らばっていたことなどなど。徳次は腕組みをしながら言った。だからお前を行かせるべきじゃなかった。国は間違ってたんだ。徳次の怒りは徴兵に関して賛成か反対かの激しい議論をした過去を蒸し返すかのようだった。ケントはすぐ反論しようと思った。戦場で無残に死んでいった多くの仲間たちのことを思うと、素直に同意できないと思ったからだ。口からその言葉が出るとき、久江の悲しそうな表情を見て話題を変えた。でも、母さんからの手紙はいつも嬉しかった。そしてしばらく沈黙してから、僕はタイのみんなに嫌われてたから。ケントについたあだ名はフライドチキン。その出来事はフランス・ブリュイエールで起こった。ドイツ軍と一進一退の激しい攻防が続く中でのある日、ケントは廃墟と化した住居内でドイツ兵と鉢合わせしてしまった。もみ合いになった挙句、ケントは相手の懐を撃ち抜いた。血のりがべったりついた壁の奥には、なんと少女が隠れていた。男は大量出血してすでに手遅れの状態だったが、彼の胸のポケットには写真があり、そこに写っている少女が目の前の少女と瓜二つなのである。ポケットにはポストカードも入っていた。ポストカードには少女の顔の輪郭だけが描かれている。きっと家族に送るつもりだったんだろう。男は自分の娘に似た少女を危険からかくまいたかったのだ。ケントは何とも言えない罪悪感を感じて、それらの遺品を持ち帰った。それから写真の男と彼の娘のことが頭から離れなかった。戦場にいる以上は殺し合いは当然のことだと分かっているものの、彼にも娘と再会できる未来があっただろう。戦いが激しさを増す一方で、ケントは戦闘に対して消極的になっていた。ついにはその態度が命令への不服従と捉えられるようになり、タイの仲間から冷たい目つきで見られるようにもなった。フライドチキンが彼のあだ名になった。 徳次を前に話すケントの表情は暗かった。久江はケントの湯飲みにお茶を注いだ。僕にも仲間を殺された怒りがなかったわけじゃない。タイの面汚し、恥知らずとか仲間から言われたけど、でもなぜかあの出来事が頭から離れなかったんだ。ケントは時々小隊の仲間に呼び出されてリンチを受けるようになった。ある日、ひどい青あざができ、鼻血が流れ出る中で、ケントは男が持っていた書きかけの似顔絵の続きを書こうとした。しかし、思うように書けない。ちゃんと書けないんだ。どうしても女の子に笑っていてほしいのに。徳次の前でケントはうつむいて背中を震わせている。徳次はケントの肩に手をあてがった。わかった。もう何も言うな。窓の外は小雨がしとしとと降り注いでいる。ところでお前、いつまで父さんたちのところにいてくれるんだ。徳次は話題を変えた。ケントはリビングの盆棚の方を見て目を細めた。明日までみたい。たったそれだけなのか。ケントは無言でうなずき、空になったおかずの皿をテーブルから下げようとする久江の手がピタリと止まった。翌日、昨夜の天気が嘘のような快晴に恵まれた。日本人町はグランドパレードのために集まった人々で歩き場所もないほどだった。パレードはケントにとってかけがえのない思い出になった。その後3人は川福レストランにいた。レストランは案の定客でいっぱいで、2階席の一角にさらに仕切りをつけて座ることになった。ケントは目の前に出てきたすき焼きに目を輝かせた。それから3人はいろいろなことを話した。徳次と久江の終戦後のこと、社会のことなど。いつの間にか時が経ち、窓の外は日が暮れかかっており、ケントは寂しそうにぽつりと言った。もう時間がないみたい。途端に3人の間に沈黙が流れた。覚悟していたこととはいえ、徳次と久江にとっては心臓を貫かれるような思いだった。せめてもう少し入れないの？ケントは無言で首を横に振った。徳次は息子に男の涙を見せまいと必死にこらえている。ケントは涙ぐんだ。もうちょっと痛かったんだけど。3人とも胸がいっぱいだった。ケントの上半身は徐々に薄くなり始めた。まるで背後に沈む夕日と同じように。徳次は最後の言葉をどうにか探している。うまく言えないが、父さんと母さん、とにかくお前を誇りに思ってる。徳次はついに泣き出してしまった。久江も泣いている。戻ってきてくれてありがとう。母さんと父さん、本当に嬉しかった。ケントの上半身は空気に溶け込み、最後に顔だけが残った。僕も嬉しかった。元気でね。母さんの手料理、本当に美味しかった。 精一杯の笑顔を作ると、ついに消えていなくなった。本当にあの子、もう戻ってこないのね。ケントが座っていたところには、飲みかけで気の抜けたビールと、しわくちゃになった一枚の5ドル札が置かれていた。それから1週間後に、奇妙な出来事が起こった。日系退役軍人会に、とある女性から手紙が送られてきた。送り主はカレン・シュミット。ドイツ、フランス、イタリア戦災孤児支援者協会会長とある。その女性はずっと吉田ファミリーを探していて、彼女が手にしているケントの遺品を直接返したいとのことだった。その1ヶ月後、ロサンゼルスへカレンがやってきた。カレンは40代半ばのドイツ人女性で、3人はイースト LA の日系人墓地エバーグリーンへ向かった。ケンと吉田の名が刻まれた小さく控えめな墓石の前に立つと、カレンはバッグから丁重に布で包んだものを2つ取り出した。一つは古びたポストカード、そしてもう一つは小さな手帳だった。このポストカードと手帳は一緒に戦時中に私のところに送られてきました。送り主はケントさんご本人でした。徳次と久江は手にしたポストカードを見てハッとした。ケントが泣きながら話していたカードだった。さらに手帳の中身を見た。記載ははっきりとわかるものだった。漫画だ。内容はごく単純かつ数ページに簡単にまとめられている。敵地で一人はぐれてしまった主人公が親を失った少女と偶然出会い、その少女の力を借りながら自分の体まで何とか戻るが、実は少女の父を殺してしまったのは主人公だったという結末だ。これらが送られてきて、夫がケントさんに殺されてしまったのだということをなんとなく悟りました。ポストカードの女の子は私の娘ですが、実は彼女は夫が戦争に行く前に病気で死にました。徳次と久江はそれを聞くと、申し訳ないという気持ちでがっくりと肩を落とした。夫は似顔絵を描いて私と娘との思い出に浸りたかったんでしょう。それからカレンは漫画とポストカードを墓石の前に備えると言った。はじめはケントさんを許せませんでした。夫を殺した上に馬鹿げた漫画を送ってきたと思いました。しかし時が経つにつれてその考えが変わりました。人の痛みがわからない人間にこんな悲しい漫画が描けるはずがない。ましてや当たり前のように人が死んでいく戦場なんですから。久江は涙ぐんだ。それは何度も何度も消しゴムで消した跡のあるポストカードからも想像できました。ケントさんはきっととても苦しんでいた。そしてそれは彼が誰よりも優しくて勇気がある人だったことの証明です。徳次は涙をこらえ、久江はその場に座り込んで泣きながら墓石に話しかけた。あなた、きっとこのために戻ってきたのね。徳次と久江は昨年のケントの里帰りについて話した。カレンは信じられないという顔をしながらも 自分が今ここに立っているという事実が、その奇跡を物語っていると分かった。3人は胸いっぱいになった。ケントの墓に花を添えて一緒に手を合わせた。すると、春のそよ風が若葉を揺らし、湖面に波紋を作った。手帳のページがパラパラっとめくれて、最後に成長した少女とカレン。宙に舞うポストカードには、少女とカレンの夫の笑顔が浮かび上がっていた。
Hi, my name is Makiko Nakasone. I'm a charter president of the Little Tokyo Rotary Club and a former staff writer of the Nihon Keizai Shimbun, and I was one of 3 judges. The other 2 judges were Mrs. Misako Muto, an avid reader and the wife of the Japanese Consul General, Mr. Akira Muto, and Mrs. Yukiko Yanagida, a longtime editor and the author of the recently published Yadonashi Kobun about the Buddhist monk who was Stephen Jobs' mentor. I will critique in Japanese first. 審査員を務めました中曽根真紀子です。元日本経済新聞東京本社とロサンゼルス支局の記者で、5年前にリトル東京ロータリークラブを設立し、当地と深いご縁を結びました。2人目の審査員は大変な読書家で、在ロサンゼルス日本国総領事館の武藤明総領事夫人である武藤美佐子様。3人目は日本の大手出版社で30年余り編集の経験があり、5月に出版されたばかりの宿なし公文の著者、柳田由紀子さんです。今年は審査員の総入れ替えとなりました。今年度のコンテストには合計8作の応募がありました。うち1作は絵本で選考対象外、残り7作は時代背景は戦前から現在まで、テーマも戦前の床屋さん一家からビジネスマンの苦悩までとバラエティに富んだものでした。受賞作の戦場の漫画家の主人公は、臆病者の捺印を押され、家に誉れをもたらすことも華々しく錦を飾ることもありませんでしたが、両親にとってはかけがえのない大きな誇り、ひたすらの親の愛情が強く感じられる印象に残る作品であることが評価されました。また、迎え火、送り火、野菜で作る少量馬など日本のお盆の慣習を丁寧に描いた点も称賛されました。日系アメリカ人の歴史というと、第442部隊戦闘団について語られることが多く、別のテーマの作品を選びたいという意見もありましたが、依然各地で戦争が絶えない今、不戦あるいは平和について今一度考えるための良い機会になることを願いつつ、本作を対象に選びました。なお、本作には寛容が一切施されていません。これは特別な文体を維持するために、あえて選択した手法とは思われず、読み物として致命的な欠陥を抱えていることを指摘しておきます。最後に、日本語5000字以内という規定を超えた応募作品が多かったことも付け加えます。今後は例えば40字 ×125 行以内などの明確な記述が必要と思われます。So we had 8 entries on a variety of topics and time from the pre-war era to the present, and from a story on a barbershop family to a businessman's struggle. The winning short story, The War Zone Manga Artist, focused not on a medal-winning heroic Nisei soldier, but rather on a timid, cowardly young man. For his parents, however, he was a very proud son. The depiction of their unwavering love was impressive. We also appreciated the writer outlining beautifully how the Japanese Issei celebrated Obon, one of the most important Japanese religious customs. Since much has been written on the Nisei soldiers during World War II, we wished to choose a different topic. But in the end, we decided to select this story with a hope for everyone to reflect again on the importance of peace. We also want to add that this story does not have any paragraph, which is a critical error in writing, unless it was intentional to create a special writing style, which in this case, we do not believe it was. Before I close, I want to mention that many of the submitted stories exceeded word limit. In the future, we recommend to have a clearer guideline, particularly on the word limit. And with that, I'd like to hand the microphone to the winner, Junzo Arai. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。本当に、賞をいただいて。
もし英語でご用意の場合は英語でどうぞ。
あ、英語ですか。ちょっと苦手なんですけど。I'm really honored to be received this award, and this is my very first time writing a short story. And I realized that there are the deep culture in Little Tokyo, so that I'm very happy to know about that. So so I really appreciate for the judges and also the people who support this community and try to preserve the culture and the deep history, deep culture and history. Well, thank you.
What a wonderful evening. Oh my gosh, all the writers are incredibly talented and they all have their unique stories to tell, and funny enough, all with ghost themes. And of course, the icing on the cake is having brilliant actors breathe life into them. And especially Eijiro. I mean, Eijiro could read the phone book and he'd get my attention. Just anyway, all of these wonderful stories can be read again, as I'm sure I would like to read them again, will be published in the Rafu Shimpo and in the websites of Janum, Discover Nikkei, and the Little Tokyo Historical Society. I'm Marilyn Tokuda, and thank you so much for joining us, for sharing this wonderful evening of storytelling, celebrating Little Tokyo. Here with final words is Mike Okamura, president of the Little Tokyo Historical Society. Mike?
Thanks, Marilyn. Wow. After all this excitement, how am I supposed to sleep tonight with all I'll be thinking about is the spirits and many departed and lively souls of Little Tokyo, as creatively expressed through each of the winning stories. I knew you all would enjoy a virtual celebration for the Imagine Little Tokyo Short Story Contest. It literally took the spirit of the Little Tokyo neighborhood to make this program into a successful reality. I would like to thank all the readers and all the judges who read all of the story submissions, our dynamic actors Tamlyn Tomita, Derek Mio, and Eijiro Ozaki, who brought these stories to life, our MC, Marilyn Tokuda, and our partners, Discover Nikkei's Yoko Nishimura and Janum's Joy Yamaguchi, both of whom worked tirelessly with the Short Story Contest Committee. A special thank you to our Short Story Contest donors, who will be listed on a subsequent slide, who made the Short Story Contest and the monetary awards a reality. And now I would like to introduce and thank the Imagine Little Tokyo Short Story Contest Committee members, Emiko Mita, Bill Watanabe, Shige Higashi, myself, Yoko Nishimura, and co-chairs Niiya Iwataki and Naomi Hirahara. We can't rest on our laurels too long, as the committee will spring into action in the fall to start working on the 2021 edition of the 8th annual Imagine Little Tokyo Short Story Contest. If you'd like to learn about volunteering on the committee or make a tax-deductible donation for next year's contest, or learn about the spirited, all-volunteer Little Tokyo Historical Society, please visit the recently revamped LTH website at www.littletokyohs.org and explore throughout, as well as take the survey for tonight's program. Again, thank you, and we hope to see you and the many spirits in the 136-year-old Little Tokyo one day. Good night.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming. We know that folks are going to start heading out, but want to encourage you to fill out our exit survey. I'll be putting it in the chat now, as well as sending it out to participants. And you fill out that survey, it allows us to put on more programming like this one and continue to improve every time. And thank you so much to Little Tokyo Historical Society, as well as Discover Nikkei for all of their hard work tonight. And I want to encourage you, if you enjoyed this program, please consider supporting the organizations like we mentioned. Please consider supporting Little Tokyo Historical Society. As they had mentioned, they are all volunteer run, as well as JANM, becoming a member or supporting through a donation at this time really helps us keep going, even as we are closed to the public physically. We can continue to gather virtually like this. And with that, we want to conclude our formal program. Thank you so much to everyone. And we're going to conclude by sharing a short film made by Steve Nagano, a Little Tokyo community member, sharing kind of what Little Tokyo looks like right now and our hopes for the future. Since we can't be there physically right now, we wanted to share this video with you. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming again. And with that, we'll conclude. Thank you.
Little Tokyo is like the roots of my family history and my Japanese American identity, so it feels good to come back here and contribute to what used to be my grandparents' community as well.
It's our community.
It's the only community in downtown.
Absolutely. I mean, walking places every day. There's nothing else like it. Yeah. No other communities like it.
This community is so strong and so caring, and I think that's very evident in like the sheer amount of people that came out.
That would be tragic. This is one of the best parts of downtown Los Angeles. You know, a real treasure.
Little Tokyo for sure is like very, very unique. Just the amount of people that have banded together in the community that used to come together. You don't see this anywhere else.
I don't know, it raised such a passion for me that I had to be here.
I look at other communities where there were Little Tokyos or J-towns, and they don't have it anymore, and it's really sad. So we have to do whatever we can to maintain the remaining J-towns or Japanese communities that we have.
Pretty sad if this wasn't here, like, you know, for future generations to enjoy and have fun. So.
I think not having Little Tokyo would have a significant negative impact on not only the organizations, the businesses, but our community as a whole, which is why I think it's so important for organizations and people in the community to support what's going on here in Little Tokyo.
It means something to have this physical space where we could gather, and we would lose out on a lot of the strength of this community if we didn't have this place for all of us to come together and care about.
This is a piece of history that we don't want to lose.
It's important for the people that are here and young people to see the value in this community and to help it to grow, and hopefully a lot of what is core about Little Tokyo can remain.
If I went back to Little Tokyo, let's say in 10 years, those shop owners who were of Japanese ancestry, I would feel pretty bad about that, because Little Tokyo has been a very important part of what Los Angeles is. There's no guarantee that indeed in 10 years there's going to be much of a trace. I'm hoping that you who are hearing me and others realize the importance of keeping a presence seeing a little bronze plaque saying Little Tokyo. That's not going to give us a whole lot. Work to preserve that community for your own families. The families that have not been born yet, but are Japanese American. They're going to want to know this. They're going to want to feel and appreciate this.
Thank you so much, everyone. And with that, we conclude our program. Thank you for coming. I've put the survey again in the comments. It is surveymonkey.com/r/all-caps-janum, capital J, July 23. And you can find it in the chat as well as in the Google document I shared. And thank you so much to Steve Nagano for that video and for sharing that. That film is also available on YouTube. And with that, we're concluding our formal program, and thank you so much for coming. And we hope you have a great night. Thank you.